There's a certain heaviness that comes from a brain that automatically jumps to the worst outcome. Maybe you're planning a trip and already imagining the flight getting cancelled, the hotel being terrible, getting sick in a foreign country. Maybe you're starting a new job and already seeing yourself failing, getting fired, being unable to pay rent. Maybe someone you love is 5 minutes late and your brain has already gone to car accidents, hospital emergency rooms, devastating loss. And you know, rationally, that you're catastrophizing. You know the worst case scenario probably won't happen. But knowing that doesn't stop your mind from going there, doesn't stop the anxiety from flooding your system, doesn't stop you from living through disasters that exist only in your imagination, over and over and over again. Maybe you know this pattern. Maybe it's you. That person whose mind immediately jumps to the worst possible outcome in any situation. Who can't enjoy good things because you're too busy waiting for them to fall apart. Who exhausts people with your constant what-ifs and your need to plan for every catastrophe. Who's been called negative, anxious, a worrywart, when really you're just trying to feel safe in a world that taught you safety is temporary and disaster is always one moment away. You're not choosing to think this way, you're wired for it. And the worst part? The thing people don't understand? Your catastrophic thinking isn't pessimism, it's protection. Your brain learned somewhere along the way that preparing for the worst keeps you safe. That if you imagine every terrible thing that could happen, you'll somehow be ready for it. That anxiety is preparation and worry is control. Most people think catastrophic thinking is just being negative, just expecting bad things to happen, just being unable to see the positive. But psychology tells a far more complex and painful story. For most people who always see the worst case scenario, the problem isn't negativity, it's trauma. It's a nervous system that learned, through repeated experience, that good things don't last, that safety is an illusion, that disaster strikes when you're not prepared. So the mind stays in constant vigilance, scanning for threats, planning for catastrophe, running simulations of everything that could go wrong so that nothing catches you by surprise. Because surprise in your history meant pain, meant being blindsided, meant trusting that things were okay and then having everything fall apart. So you stopped trusting okay. You stopped believing in good. You started living in permanent brace mode, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Here's the part that makes positive thinkers uncomfortable. People who catastrophize aren't choosing to ruin good moments. They're operating from a nervous system stuck in threat mode. When something good happens, when life feels stable, when things are going well, what happens in your body? You don't feel relief. You feel anxiety. Your heart races. Your stomach tightens. Your brain starts scanning for what's going to go wrong. Not because you want it to go wrong, because your nervous system learned that good is when you need to be most alert. That calm is when disaster strikes. That happiness is the moment right before everything gets taken away. So instead of enjoying the good, you spend it preparing for the bad. Living through imaginary disasters so you won't be destroyed when the real one comes. Think about the last time something good happened in your life. A new relationship, a job offer, a positive health result. Did you celebrate? Or did your mind immediately go to how it could fail? How the relationship could end? How the job could go wrong? How the health problem could return? Did the good news bring relief? Or did it bring new anxiety about losing what you just gained? That's the pattern. That's catastrophic thinking, not the inability to see good, the inability to trust good, the bone-deep belief that anything worth having is something that can be taken. So you protect yourself by never fully having it, by keeping one foot in the disaster scenario so you're never fully invested in the good one. Because if you don't let yourself believe in good, it can't devastate you when it disappears. This doesn't come from nowhere. It's built from experience usually. The child who had stability ripped away suddenly learned that safety is temporary. The child who trusted everything was fine and then came home to parents divorcing, to a parent dying, to sudden upheaval they never saw coming, learned that not seeing disaster coming is dangerous. So they became hypervigilant, always watching, always preparing, always assuming the worst so they'd never be caught off guard again. The child who was punished for being optimistic, who got excited about something and then had it taken away or used against them, who learned that hope is dangerous because disappointment hurts worse than never hoping at all. So they stopped hoping, started expecting bad outcomes, because at least then they're in control. At least then they're prepared. Somewhere along the way, catastrophic thinking became your survival strategy. If you imagine every terrible thing, you're ready. If you plan for the worst, it can't surprise you. If you never fully trust good things, you can't be destroyed when they end. Except, here's what that strategy costs you. You never actually enjoy anything. You can't be present in good moments because you're too busy preparing for when they end. You exhaust yourself living through disasters that never happen. You create suffering in advance of pain that may never come. You sacrifice now for a preparation that doesn't actually protect you. Because when disaster does come, all that worrying didn't make it easier. It just meant you suffered twice, once in imagination, once in reality. Here's what researchers discovered about this pattern. Dr. Michelle Newman's work on anxiety shows that people who catastrophize often believe, unconsciously, that worry prevents bad things from happening. Like a superstition. Like if you imagine the worst, you're somehow warding it off. Or if bad things do happen, at least you won't be caught unprepared. But the research shows the opposite. Chronic worry doesn't prepare you for disaster. It depletes you. It keeps your nervous system in constant activation. It creates the very overwhelm and inability to cope that you're trying to prevent. When disaster actually comes, you're not more ready. You're less ready because you've been running on empty for years, exhausting yourself with imaginary catastrophes. We live in a world that reinforces catastrophic thinking. The news is designed to show you worst-case scenarios. Social media amplifies every terrible thing happening anywhere. We're bombarded with information about every possible danger, every potential threat, every way things could go wrong. And if you're already wired for catastrophic thinking, this constant stream of disaster confirmation feels like validation. See? The world is dangerous. Bad things are always happening. I'm right to be constantly vigilant. Except you're not actually safer for consuming all that information. You're just more anxious, more convinced that disaster is inevitable, more unable to experience the present because you're too busy preparing for terrible futures that mostly never arrive. There's a particular loneliness in catastrophic thinking because when you share your fears, people minimize them. That's not going to happen. You're being dramatic. Why do you always assume the worst? And they mean well. They're trying to reassure you, but it doesn't help because they don't understand. They think you're choosing to think this way, that if you just tried to be more positive, if you just focused on the good, you'd be fine. They don't understand this isn't a thought problem, it's a nervous system problem. You're not choosing catastrophic thoughts, they're happening to you, automatically, uncontrollably, like breathing, and being told to just think positive when your entire system is screaming. Danger feels like being told to just decide not to have anxiety. It's not how it works. Behind every catastrophic thought is often hidden grief. Not for disasters that happened, for peace you've never felt, for the ability to enjoy good things that other people seem to have, for the mental quiet that must exist somewhere but you've never experienced. You watch people celebrate good news without immediately worrying about when it will be taken away. You see people trust that things will work out without needing to plan for every possible failure. And you wonder what that feels like. to live without constant dread, to experience good without waiting for bad, to have a mind that rests instead of one that never stops scanning for threats that mostly don't exist. Here's where it gets impossibly complex. Sometimes your worst-case thinking actually saves you. Sometimes the thing you worried about does happen. And then people say, "You were right to worry." But that's not actually true. The worry didn't prevent the bad thing, and the bad thing happening doesn't justify all the hours, days, years you spent in anxiety about things that didn't happen. You can't live your whole life in fear because occasionally something bad occurs. That's not preparation, that's imprisonment. You're sacrificing life for the illusion of control, believing that if you just worry enough, imagine enough disasters, prepare enough, you can somehow make yourself safe. But you can't. Safety isn't something you create through catastrophic thinking. Safety is something you feel, and you can't feel it while your nervous system is constantly activated. The question isn't whether bad things might happen. They might. They will. Life includes loss, includes disappointment, includes things going wrong. The question is, do you want to live those disasters twice? Once in imagination, for weeks or months or years, and then again if they actually occur? Or do you want to live now, in this moment which is actually okay, where the disaster you're imagining hasn't happened yet, where there's still good to experience if you could be present for it? Because when you're always living in the worst case scenario, you miss what's actually happening, which is usually not disaster, usually okay, sometimes even good. But you can't see good when you're looking for bad. Maybe healing doesn't mean stopping catastrophic thoughts. Maybe it means changing your relationship with them, recognizing them as information about your nervous system, not truth about the future. When the thought comes, what if this all falls apart? You can acknowledge it. That's my fear talking. That's my history speaking. That's my nervous system trying to protect me. Without believing it's predicting the future, without letting it dictate how you live this moment. The thought can be there without being in charge. The fear can exist without controlling your behavior. You can notice you're catastrophizing and choose to be present anyway, not by fighting the thoughts, by making space for them while also making space for the reality of now. There's something that shifts when you realize catastrophic thinking isn't preparing you. It's exhausting you. When you understand that all the worry in the world doesn't prevent bad things from happening, it just prevents you from enjoying good things. When you recognize that the worst case scenario is almost never what actually occurs. And even when bad things do happen, you handle them. You survive. Not because you spent years imagining them, because humans are resilient. We adapt, we cope, we make it through. And all that preparation, it didn't actually help. It just meant you suffered in advance of pain that might never come. So if you're someone who always sees the worst case scenario, please understand this. You're not negative, you're not dramatic, you're not being irrational. You're operating from a nervous system that learned to protect you the only way it knew how. By preparing for disaster, by never fully trusting good, by staying perpetually braced. And that made sense once, when you were young, when things were unpredictable, when good things did get taken away, when you needed that hypervigilance to feel even somewhat safe, but you're not that vulnerable child anymore. You're an adult with resources, with capacity, with the ability to handle things as they come, instead of having to prepare for every possibility. There will still be moments when your mind goes to the worst, when something good happens and you immediately imagine it failing, when someone's late and you imagine catastrophe, when things are going well and you start waiting for disaster. That's okay. That's not failure. That's pattern that's been running for decades. It doesn't disappear because you understand it. But each time you notice it, you're building awareness. Each time you can name it, That's catastrophic thinking, not reality. You're creating space between the thought and your response to it. And that space, that's where freedom lives. But there will also come moments when something good happens and you let yourself feel it. When you notice the catastrophic thoughts starting and you choose, just for this moment, to be present instead. When you catch yourself bracing and you consciously soften. Just a little. Just enough to experience this good thing without immediately jumping to when it'll end. And it won't feel safe at first. It'll feel vulnerable, exposed, like you're tempting fate by not preparing for disaster. But nothing bad will happen. The moment will just be good, simple, here. And you'll realize that all those years of catastrophic thinking didn't protect you. They just kept you from living, from being present, from enjoying what was actually okay while you were too busy imagining what could go wrong. Maybe that's the deepest healing there is, not eliminating worst-case thinking completely, but learning to live alongside it, to notice it without obeying it, to acknowledge your fear without letting it dictate your experience, to understand that your mind will probably always scan for danger because that's how it learned to keep you safe. But you don't have to live in those disaster scenarios. You can visit them briefly, acknowledge the fear, and then come back to now, back to what's actually happening, back to the moment that's usually okay, sometimes even good. If you can let yourself be here for it instead of living in future catastrophes that mostly never arrive, not fearless, just willing to be present even while afraid, not positive thinking, just making space for what's actually real instead of only what could go wrong. And that's not just survival, that's actually living.